She's been knocking for over 200 years. It started with a simple knock in 1817. But what began as a nuisance would soon become a nightmare, a calculated torment that would escalate into a horror story claiming a man's life. This is the legend of the Bell Witch, a violent spirit who, they say, never really left. For over 200 years, she's just been waiting for someone to answer the door. It's a story that's often called one of America's most famous and allegedly documented hauntings. For those of you who, like me, can't get enough of the strange, dark, and mysterious corners of our world, I invite you to join this community. A quick click on the subscribe and like buttons doesn't just help the channel grow. It ensures you won't miss our next trip down the rabbit hole. Now let's head back in time to a quiet farm in Tennessee, where one family's American dream was about to become an American nightmare. Section 1. The Normal World. Our story begins, as they so often do, not with a ghost, but with a family. In the early 1800s, John Bell moved his wife, Lucy, and their children from North Carolina to a beautiful, sprawling farm of over 300 acres in Robertson County, Tennessee. The area along the Red River was picturesque, promising, and the perfect place to build a life. The Bells were the definition of respectable, hard-working farming folk. John was a deacon in his church, and the family was well regarded in their community. For 13 years, they lived a peaceful, unassuming life, raising their family and building their prosperity. They were the picture of early American success. But that peace was fragile, and in the summer of 1817, it was about to be shattered for good. Section 2. The Inciting Incident. At first, it was the kind of stuff you could easily explain away. While inspecting his fields one day, John Bell saw a bizarre animal he couldn't identify. It reportedly had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He shot at it, but the creature simply vanished. A short time later, one of his sons saw a bird of extraordinary size perched on a fence post. Then came the noises. It started with faint scratching at the doors and windows like a dog trying to get in. Soon, gentle knocking sounds began on the outside walls, which the family dismissed as the wind. But the sounds didn't go away. They grew bolder, moving inside the house. The family started hearing what sounded like rats gnawing on their bedposts, but they could never find any rats, or even a single tooth mark. They heard the sound of chains being dragged across the floors and the smacking of lips, as if someone were eating right beside them. The activity was unsettling, but for a family grounded in their faith, it was still just a series of strange events. A nuisance, a mystery, but not yet a threat. That was about to change. The knocking was just a prelude. The entity was testing the locks, and it was about to find its way inside not just their home, but the family itself. Section 3. The Escalation. The haunting quickly spiraled from odd noises to direct, intelligent, and malicious attacks. The entity found its voice. It began as faint whispers, too quiet to understand, but grew stronger until it could be heard clearly throughout the house. It would sing hymns, flawlessly quote scripture from sermons preached miles away, and carry on full conversations with the family and the many visitors who came to witness the phenomenon. When asked what it was, the spirit gave conflicting answers, but it often went by the name Kate, a name rumored to be linked to a neighbor, Kate Batts, with whom John Bell had a prior dispute. From then on, the entity was most famously known as Kate, or the Bell Witch, and she was violent. The focus of her physical torment was John Bell and his youngest daughter, Betsy. Betsy, just a teenager, endured horrific abuse. The invisible force would pull her hair, sometimes yanking her clear across a room. She was slapped so hard that red handprints would appear on her face. She was pinched, bruised, and stuck with pins. Blankets and pillows were ripped from her bed, leaving her terrified in the cold. John Bell, the patriarch, was another primary target. Kate seemed to harbor a deep, personal hatred for him, constantly calling him Old Jack Bell and screaming insults and curses. The verbal abuse soon became physical. He began suffering from seizures, facial twitching, and a sensation of being choked, as if an invisible hand was squeezing his throat. The legend of the haunting spread like wildfire, and people came from all over to witness it. The most famous tale involves a man who would one day be president, General Andrew Jackson. Intrigued, Jackson and his men traveled to the Bell farm to confront the spirit. As their wagon approached the property, it suddenly froze, unable to move. After struggling for some time, Jackson reportedly yelled, "By the eternal, boys, it is the witch." A disembodied voice then laughed, told them they could proceed, and promised to see them that night. Jackson's men were reportedly tormented all evening, slapped, and having their covers stolen. Jackson himself was said to have left the next morning, declaring he'd rather fight the entire British Army than spend another night with the Bell Witch. The entity wasn't just a physical threat. It actively meddled in their lives. Betsy Bell was engaged to a local man, Joshua Gardner, a relationship the spirit hated. Kate tormented the young couple relentlessly until, finally, a terrified Betsy broke off the engagement. With that goal accomplished, the activity around Betsy began to lessen. But the witch's focus on her father only intensified. She had made a promise to see him dead, and the final act was about to begin. Section 4. The Climax. By 1820, John Bell's health was in a terrifying decline. The seizures and choking spells grew worse until he was completely bedridden. All the while, the entity's voice tormented him, vowing that his end was near. On December 19th, 1820, John Bell fell into a stupor and couldn't be woken. The next morning, his son discovered a strange, small vial with a dark liquid in the medicine cabinet that no one recognized. At that moment, the triumphant voice of the Bell Witch echoed through the house, boasting, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." To test this horrifying claim, a drop of the liquid was reportedly given to the family cat, which died almost instantly. John Bell died on December 20th, 1820. The family threw the mysterious vial into the fireplace, where it erupted in a brilliant blue flame and shot up the chimney. Even at his funeral, the entity showed no mercy. Mourners reported hearing the disembodied voice laughing and singing rowdy drinking songs as John Bell was laid to rest. The legend of the Bell Witch is widely cited as the only case in American folklore where a supernatural entity is directly blamed for causing a person's death. The witch had fulfilled her promise. Section 5. The Aftermath. After John Bell's death, the worst of the terror seemed to be over. Kate informed the family that she would be leaving but promised to return in 7 years. According to the legend, she kept her word. In 1828, the spirit did return for a short time, visiting John Bell's widow Lucy and their sons. Having already endured years of horror, they chose not to engage with it, and the presence faded away again. The entity then made another promise, to return once more in 107 years, in 1935. However, no significant hauntings were reported that year. Betsy Bell, the girl at the center of the spirit's torment, never did marry her first love, Joshua Gardner. She eventually married another man and moved away, rarely speaking of the horror she endured as a child. The Bell family home is no longer standing, but the land and the legend remain. Conclusion. For over 200 years, the story of the Bell Witch has refused to die, becoming one of America's most enduring and terrifying folk legends. The land where the Bell Farm once stood, especially a nearby cave now known as the Bell Witch Cave, is considered a paranormal hotspot to this day. Visitors and investigators report hearing whispers, feeling the push of unseen hands, and capturing unexplained phenomena. Skeptics argue it was all an elaborate hoax, a case of mass hysteria, or maybe even a real-world crime disguised as a ghost story. But what makes the Bell Witch legend so chilling is how widely it was apparently documented at the time. The main source for the story comes from a manuscript titled Our Family's Trouble, written by Richard Williams Bell, which was the basis for the first widely published book on the case in 1894. Whether it was a vengeful spirit, a poltergeist, or something else entirely, the entity known as Kate left a permanent scar on American folklore. The story is a terrifying reminder that some doors should never be opened. The simple knocking that started it all has never truly gone silent. It just echoes through history, a violent spirit that never left, still waiting for someone new to answer.